life's about, So, cult. Well, I guess everybody was obsessed with it. If you're not interested in death, you don't know what life's about, So, the Egyptians had texts on death, but for good reason, because people were dying, and in droves in the cataclysms. But what else I like about the Chinese stuff is that it validates a lot of what the Bible says. It's just unbelievable. And now that we've seen the Hopewell also validate what the Bible is saying about the sun changing direction and the north being the south and all the stuff that proves why the Pyrenees map.
There's a couple of YouTube videos that show that in the Bible stories, Noah and the 8 people that were with Noah are incorporated right in the structure of the writing of the Chinese. There are a few videos that show that.
Correct.
And plain as day.
That's completely correct. They're overt. They're not like wink and a nod. They're very overt references to like Noah's flood, for example.
Slap you right in the face.
Yeah, there's no other interpretation. It's not like you can go, well, maybe they're meaning this. No, it's pretty straightforward exactly what it means. One of the words was for like family was a man, his wife, and then 3 sons and 3 daughters. It was like you can't say it's very
Noah
specific.
Story. That's the Noah story right there. Boom, in your face.
Exactly. And that's the neat thing about the Chinese, aside from all the science. And the other thing about the Chinese, as far as the Chinese sciences go, is some of their best scientific work was all the most ancient stuff. And why is that? Because they could see the plasma, so it hadn't been religified and turned into a superstition at that time. It was exactly what they were seeing in the sky. They were making compasses and seismology instruments with it. They were fascinated with earthquakes. The word for electric shock was the word for earthquake. And now with the Hopewell, with the work that I've put out, we can see that the Hopewell proved that the Earth was upside down and that it went across the North Pole. And people, it's not like I started off in this field. I was an atheist, and in the world of mainstream science, I would have never believed that the Earth was ever any different. I always believed. But the evidence is it's undeniable. The statistical fact of it is that
exactly the fact is that the ancients tell us what happened.
Can you hear
those
guys?
I can hear you.
The ancients tell us what happened, but in the 1800s, myths were poo-pooed upon, and now they have a completely different meaning. Our history in the ancient past, changing that in the 1800s.
Are you AFK right?
I'm just listening to Rick. He's speaking my language.
Really good conversations going on, and people aren't angry like that one guy, and I booted him. So.
Well, it's nothing personal to anybody. It has to do with the business and things that I'm doing on a personal endeavor. So.
Okay. Too busy. Gotcha.
Well, it's actually part of the process is avoiding being on social medias. It's actually written into the process of the thing that I'm doing. It's not my program. I didn't design it, but it does work. If you want to be successful in business, look, Peter Sage, he tried. He's in jail, by the way. They didn't just shut him down in terms of, hey, you can't build space energy. They sent his ass to jail, and that was a $15 billion deal he was working on. Wow. So you think that there aren't some powers trying to stop us from achieving the reaching into space? Maybe he was a crook, but all of a sudden he was a crook, or was it because now he was getting $15 billion to get it together to harness space energy? So I have to. The thing that I'm doing, the way that I'm trying to increase position, is a serious matter, and I have to take it seriously because, of course, my house and family is on the line. Mankind is on the line. What I'm doing is some serious work. It's more important than writing papers. Not that I don't enjoy writing the papers, but it's just it's a hardcore endeavor, and obviously no one else is in the community is kind of fit to or desiring to do that. So who's going to go out and do it? Because Peter Sage, they locked his ass up,
Right.
and that, I mean, think about that. He was legit building a company to harness space energy, and they threw his ass in the jail. I mean, that's where he is right now. So, I mean, I can't be screwing around with these forces. If I'm going to do the science, I got to do it. And so I've taken it very seriously. And I'm trying to stay away. Of course, sometimes it's hard. I have a lot of opinions politically, and it could get me in trouble. But right now, it's working. The bankers and stuff, they seem to like me. So we'll see. It's early days. I mean, the game is early.
Right.
I mean, it could all be screwed up still, and then I'd have to go live in the Amazon as a recluse. You know what I mean? Like, I can still screw it all up.
Right.
It's early days for the game that I'm playing, and it's not that I don't enjoy doing this kind of science and obviously talking with you fellers, but it's just that somebody's got to do it, and we can't rely on the system to do it because they don't have any incentive to question their assumptions, and they certainly love hiding the truth. I mean, it's like they can't stop lying. I don't know what the hell's wrong with these guys. It's like this is some of the best information. Who wouldn't be interested in this stuff? Of course, the elites know. We'll
have to talk more about this later on when we're not being recorded. So.
Yeah, well,
I'd like to help you if I can.
Anyway.
But there's, I'm limited to a few things that I can only do, right? So.
Yeah, I'm not going to get into the specifics of what I'm up to anyway. But I'm just saying, like, there's a reason I stepped away from social.
Yeah, I understand, Raymond. I understand.
Okay. I hope that they aren't hearing too much of my rantings.
No.
Americans, it is one of my big goals in life to write an epic, an EU based epic that starts with the Younger Dryas period and goes forward into all the way through the Arthurians, and does sort of what Thom did, and actually introduces people into this world, because
just focuses on North America, is what you're saying, right?
Well, I mean, his focus was on the Welsh Indians. The reason why I choose that is because it's more mysterious than the Egyptians. The Egyptian, if you use the Egyptians, they're going to say, well, here's the translations, and this is why you're wrong. But if you use a culture that we have no written language for, it's pretty hard for them to do any. All they can do is attack the stones, and it's pretty hard to argue with a stone. Now they could do it, and they have.
Yeah.
Or they just ignore you, and they treat you like
they just call it fake.
Right, they call it fake. But in the end, you could still bring it to Hollywood and still get something done, because Hollywood, they haven't made these stories just because nobody's told them. I mean, they'll turn almost anything into a story if they think they can make money on it. And if Avatar is any indication, people are thirsting for this stuff, because Avatar is full of Saturnian references. It's just plumb full of it, from the daggone whole planet being surrounding a gas giant to the Native American stuff. I mean, it's just all sorts of. It's just because
he giant in stature, apparently.
Yes, and he went down to South America and he learned from these real tribes, and they told him the skinny. And to his credit, he listened and he put that stuff in there, and people loved it to death. I mean, just like Star Wars, it's that same hypothesis that I said before. Anytime we touch it, people go crazy for it. That's why the Iliad and the Odyssey survived, because they are Saturnian stories, and anything that touches the real history, people resonate with. When they get away from it, people go away. Exactly. Wonder Woman.
You said the right word. Resonate. It touches you inside, from the genetic memory that we all carry.
That's right. That's right. And people, not that Wonder Woman wasn't a good film. It was a good film, but one of the reasons it's keys to success is that it played off of the same daggone themes. I mean, you're talking Ares and
the Venus story.
Yes, exactly. And people still resonate. It's unbelievable, but we do. We haven't gotten over it. And
That's why
we have.
Batwoman or Batgirl is such a flop. I mean, it's considered kind of a joke in the comic industry, right? It's like, well, it was in the ancient past. It was not in the ancient past. In the old days, in in the 60s and 70s,
I
like
can tell you,
Batgirl was comical. She'd get beat up on, she'd be grabbed, and Batman and Robin would have to come and save her. And yeah, I mean, it doesn't follow the same story that Wonder Woman does, and that's why Wonder Woman is so successful.
yes. In my opinion, it matters to people a great deal. When Thor arrives on screen in the first in the Infinity War, I mean, there's
Right.
video compilations of people cheering for this moment because people connect to the god still. I mean, it's in
When the
the
Bi
Odyssey. It's
what is it
unbelievable. It's
what's the bridge called, the Bi what
the Bifrost.
the Bi with the when the Bifrost drops him off on the planet, that's when everybody freaked out, right?
Yeah. Well, he transports with his new blade, and he suddenly appears on the battle scene, and just people just go crazy. There's whole, like I say, compilation videos of people reacting to Thor arriving, and this is not. I mean, not a lot of people. I do have people come into the clinic sometimes that have on Thor rings, but it's not really common. You can't say that it's an active religion, in my opinion, at least not here, maybe in Scandinavia. But people resonate with it. And why do they resonate with it? It hasn't completely gone away from our DNA. And my maintenance is that when these Arthurian and like Maddox people and lost Roman legions and lost Hebrew tribes, when they came here, yeah, of course they were different races and they might have had some difficulties getting along, but as far as they were concerned, these were long lost kindred. Whereas the other natives, they also had the same religion, but they saw things differently. And but as long as the commerce was working, I think that probably things were allowed to continue. But as soon as the Roman legion got here and they started to stifle the commerce flow of the ancient triangle trade, in my opinion, it was a triangle trade that went all the way down to South America. That's when they said, okay, gotta wipe you out. And it had to have been, if you're going to defeat people with armor and horses and stone forts and the knowledge of European warfare, if you're going to defeat them and wipe them out at the Falls of the Ohio, you had to have a really big coalition. So I mean, the idea that South Americans didn't come and mingle with North Americans is so laughable. It's just unrealistic. And this is all archaeology. It's just got to go. This version of archaeology that treats natives like they are unsophisticated boors who didn't know anything about commerce and they're just running around in loincloths is so stupid. They have it at the Cahokia. If you go to the Cahokia, they've got all the people. They have an actual picture of people from the Midwest, and of course they're dressed beautifully. But in all the displays, they're all naked. And the women are naked. I'm like, daggone it, this is just plain wrong. These were sophisticated people with sophisticated trade routes and relationships. They may have even had contracts. I mean, if the Sumerians had contracts 6,000 years ago in what looks like alien language, why wouldn't Native Americans be able to do that? I mean, if they can have moon compasses and all this stuff, according to the archaeologists, why wouldn't they have sophisticated relationships, basically Tudor-like, alliances, just like we see with the Habsburgs? I mean, it was definitely advanced, and it was based in something relatable, and of course there were hunter-gatherers. But that wasn't the only thing. I mean, even Europeans were still hunter-gatherers. When Appalachians, up until very recently, actually, a lot of Appalachians went out and foraged for not only food but medicine. I mean, right up into the late 20th century, I've met herbalists. So, and hunter-gatherers all over. Anyways, I'm rambling.
No, it's cool.
No, that's fine. I'm just watching Infinity Wars, or Thor's arrival in Wakanda there. Yeah, carry on.
So they can get kind of, and especially on a hot day, so they can get a feeling, because that ancient empire is still there. I felt the chi of it when I was there. I told myself there's no way that this wasn't an ancient fort and that it wasn't for a very powerful nation of imperial commercial. And now, were they Phoenicians? Were they Egyptians? Were they Atlanteans? I have no idea. I can't tell you. All I can tell you is it wasn't the Welsh. It was too big. It's way too big. It's not defendable.
I believe it was an Atlantean culture, but like
Yeah,
pre-devastating events.
it's long enough ago that because of how wet the environment is there, that all the evidence has been eroded and corroded away, and that leads the archaeologists to say, "Well, see, no one was here," and it's like, "What the hell are you talking about? This is very obviously a fortification." The funny thing is, the other Maddox site, the stone fort in Georgia, is totally not a fortification at all, and the archaeologists are right about that. But what they don't understand is what it is, because it's a Venus meeting Mars effigy, the same as at Avebury and at the Portsmouth, Ohio. What used to be there until, of course, they destroyed all of the mounds there, and it's the meeting of those two comets. Coming together and dancing or fighting, and depending on which culture you came from. And there would have been stone circles in the middle of that effigy, double-ended. It's two snake heads coming together. So you have an EU site there, and then you have this ancient empire site at the old stone fort in Tennessee. So the alt stream has been misinterpreting things for also 150 years. So between the two of them, everybody's been screwed.
I'm so confused.
Well, why wouldn't you be? And they don't even teach it in schools. That's what's incredibly sad. The Berea Indian Fort here in Kentucky, in 1918, there was only one archaeology study ever done on that site that's been published. And there were all sorts of walls still left, not many, but certainly more. Now there's barely anything left. Well, who's been stealing the stone off of there? It's the worst hike for you to carry stones up and down. So they had to have gotten archaeology students up there to physically carry the stones. I don't know, did they do it in the middle of the night or close the park down or whatever, but where are the stones going? Because there's no farms that are going to climb a 900-foot mountain in order to get stones that they can get out of their own farm. It's just it's tragic, is what it is.
Yeah, it's weird. The erasure of some of the history of North America. You didn't want to get into the giants, but I'm talking about the giants.
I like the Giants.
1800s. In the 1800s, there was so many accounts of giants being found, and some photographs, and it's all gone. All of the evidence is gone. I don't know what the heck they did with it. Whether they, like Indiana Jones, put it in a box and put it deep in a vault somewhere. I don't know, but.
Yeah.
It definitely threatened some power structure. Was it the Egyptologists? Was it the?
I think it threatened the Darwin story, my friend. It was it didn't want any kind of evidence to support the Bible story that giants were here in the past.
In a world that they only deal with white swans, there are no black swans allowed. They don't fit the narrative.
I'll tell you what I think is the key is if we can get. So they're decommissioning the chemical base where the Kentucky alignment is, and I've talked about the alignment there at the Bluegrass Army Depot. So that is on its way. We don't know when they're going to finish decommissioning. They are actively getting rid of all the VX gas. Now, what are they going to do with that site? Because it won't be a top secret site anymore. Are they going to open it up for tourism? Are they going to keep people away from the mounds? I mean, what are they going to do? But we should be able to
I'm going to keep that until I get it right.
We should be able to do some FOIA requests to try and get access to information about why they chose to build a top secret chemical base right over top of an archaeology site, which is very obviously Welsh. The shape of the mounds has been made into a Christian cross, and the alignment is absolutely beautiful because they use Cygnus, and we know it's Cygnus because they put Lyra there to make sure we know. But if the government knew it was there, and you can see on the LiDAR that they know that those are mounds because they built the warehouses, the chemical warehouses around the mounds. So, but why did they choose the site? I mean, who made them choose that site for this chemical base? It's kind of an odd thing to do. You know, what were they trying to accomplish in choosing?
They've done it in Egypt too. They've taken over one of those pyramids and they just dumping crap into the shaft. It's a garbage dump.
But I assume some of that is the cultural destruction that follows radical Islamization. Over here, after Thomas Jefferson and his worry about the British wanting to invade, I don't get it, because the late 1800s, there was no chance that Britain was about to come over and take over America. So why did they feel a need to destroy the fort at Charlestown State Park? And why, when you go to Charlestown State Park, you're not allowed to climb on the Devil's Backbone? Now Lee's been on it, but he's old as the dirt, so he's able, he's known all sorts of people all over the place. He's been able to get access. But I went and I went over there to Indiana, and I asked, and they said you can't go up there. And if I hadn't had my kids, I'd have just done it anyways. But what's their excuse? It's a state park, right? What are they covering up, or why? Is it just the habit of covering up? Can we not get away from the habit of covering things up? I mean, what the frick's the deal?
There's something up there they don't want you to see.
Yeah, it's like the X-Files. I'm watching a lot of the X-Files.
That reminds me. I want to ask you both something. Do you put any stock into the whole entrance to the inner Earth at the poles?
No, that's not how my Hollow Earth theory works.
How does your Hollow Earth theory work? I mean, I've heard that we can't even look at the North and South Pole. In the paper, The Plasma Electromagnetic Sky, I cover what I call the Hijim theory, the hollow, expanding, growing electromagnetic Earth. And I conjecture that the Earth's core is not exactly hollow, but not iron, and that it is. Right. I don't think so either.
It is receiving energy from the Birkeland current.
It may be iron, but in plasma form. Hot enough that it had been broke down into plasma form and still makes that magnetic field.
The Earth's rocks are charged over 100 times more than the Earth's magnetic field could have charged it. So it had to be charged by another body.
I mean, there's a lot of ways to skin the cat, but what we do know is that the core appears to be manufacturing water. And so the Earth, its mass is different, its diameter is changing, and there's more interesting causes. I don't know what all the causes of earthquakes are, but certainly I don't think it's only plate tectonics. But I'm not going to say that there's no plate tectonics.
Well, Ray, we know the sun creates hydrogen. We know the sun creates oxygen, and it's not out of the question if the plasmoid in the center of the planet does the same thing, then it's pushing elements out from the inside of the Earth as well. Right.
And it could also be capturing neutrino and other cosmic ray energy, and that could be causing the growth. What I call it, I call it the thermoelectric vine, because it enters on both sides of the planet. And
I'm with you.
And it creates a growing effect that is just like a tomato ripening on the vine. I mean, the planet starts to peel its seams.
We see more seams at the bottom of the planet than we do at the top. So if the Earth was smaller before in the past, it broke at the bottom, and it kind of curved a little bit less at the North Pole and the Northern Hemisphere area.
Well, I think that around the time Saturn flared, the Earth gained a whole lot of mass at once. Sediment, water, and salt.
And I'd say that the growth rate has changed as we've had different stars. And Jupiter, obviously, that must have been even more stretching because there were a lot more earthquakes at that time. And a lot of volcanoes were more active, like at Mount Ararat, for example.
More energy. Yeah.
Clearly, they're Saturn. But it's feeding in and it's causing tears, and there's not enough subduction zones to take up all that mass. So where did the continent of Mu go? Where did Doggerland go? I mean, they sank because there's deformation in the plates. And the deformation in the plates, there's also change in direction in the plates. And that's all been measured with standard geological science. They can't argue that anymore, like diffusion.
I'm guessing Pangea was only about 40,000 years ago, maybe 20,000 years ago. Thunderbolts of the gods may have grabbed those and broke it up and moved it around.
I don't think we're 4 billion years old. That's what I'm not going to go with 4 billion years old. And I don't think they can either, because the oldest rock, according to them, according to their own science, the oldest rock that you can find on this planet is 3 billion years old. So where did they get 4 billion years? I don't even know.
Well, don't forget they've carbon dated brand new lava, and it was 100 million years old. Hello?
Yeah. There are definitely huge problems with the dating, and I'm not.
Not carbon dated, but they use a dating mechanism for dating rock.
I know what you meant.
Yeah.
Rock. Yeah, there's no doubt that the Earth is growing, and there's no doubt that it's got electrical impulses coming into the north and the south, and it's causing stretching, ripping, changing in the planet. Of course, name a single thing in the entire universe that doesn't follow the growth cycle, right? Birth, growth, peaking, decline, death, disintegration, and transmutation. I mean, everything follows. If the stars have that cycle, if they profess that there's a star life cycle, why wouldn't there be a planet? So when the geologists try to act like it's crazy to talk about, I'm sitting there going, well, name a single other thing in the entirety of the entire universe that doesn't have a birth and death. They can't, and it's unscientific to suggest that there is such a thing. Yep. Everything we know about how the world works should come from nature, and when you look at nature, it has cycles. And the Earth is going to be no exception to that.
All right, fellas. Well, I think I've had enough. I'm kind of beat. I'm going to turn in. We can continue this.
You said that half an hour ago.
I know. I want to go. I'm tired.
All right.
Hey, I had fun.
Did we beat the horse to death? Or?
Oh, no, you did good. I got 2 recordings. So. Speaking of giants, I happen to notice there's been some stirrings lately on the subject. In the San Antonio Express, beach giant's skull unearthed by WP workers near Victoria, believed to be the largest ever found in the world. A normal head was also found on the same level. Apparently, the pieces that were taken from the mound were reconstructed in the WPA laboratory. They claim a study is being conducted whether the man came from an extraordinarily large tribe of men or if he suffered from giantism. Well, of course they're going to say that. I'd be very surprised if we ever hear the results, but it was probably a giant. Paul Globe, written in 1904, bones of a human skeleton over 11 feet high are dug up in Nevada. Workmen engaged in digging gravel here today uncovered at a depth of about 12 feet a lot of bones, part of the skeleton of a gigantic human being. Dr. Samuels examined them and pronounced them to be the bones of a man who must have been nearly 11 feet in height. And back in those times, before the authority was created, it was a normal thing for these things to be dug up. People were not awed by it at all. In fact, that's why the authority was created, to get control of the information, or their paradigms would be out the window. But somewhere along the line, it was suppressed. The discoveries of giant skeletons were not limited to North America. This article talks of giant skeletons found in a cave in Mexico. The cave gives up its bones, gives up the bones of an ancient race. An article from Europe, The Race of Giants in Old Gaul, from the London Globe. In the year 1890, some human bones of enormous size, double the ordinary in fact, were found tumulus of Castellos, and have since been carefully examined by Professor, whatever his name is there. It says they're undoubtedly, without question, giants of antiquity. But a 15-foot giant with 60 teeth was also unearthed. I mean, giants were in our past. There's just no denying it. Mainstream can snicker at it all they want, but it's a fact. Giants exist. And the further you go back, the higher they get. At one time, I thought that was ridiculous. Well, first, as a kid, I believed it. Then I spent 40 or 50 years of thinking it was just a ridiculous myth. And now it turns out that it was true. And you know, there is probably truth in just about every myth. Pretty much nothing very exciting has happened in 4 billion years except gradualism and evolution. I think that our past is much wilder than we could ever think it was. I don't know if you've heard about the giant, allegedly, that attacked a platoon of army guys in Afghanistan. They had to call special forces in, and the giant attacked him and skewered one of the soldiers, and they had to shoot him in the face in order to kill him. They collected his body up and put it on a transport plane and took it back to Washington or wherever in America they would have took it back to. It's a modern day legend. I don't know if it's true or not. I would probably think it's not true, but it's out there just the same. Kind of makes you wonder.